Hey Natalie, welcome to When Spirit Talks.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited, but as I said to you before, a little bit nervous to be here.
It's so normal. I get nervous too, so I totally get it. But I'm really happy to chat with you all the way from
Thank you.
Australia. I love the accent. I love any Australian I've met, I like love. So I don't know, but
Well, that's a good start, babes. That's a good start.
So I'd love to hear your story and how you became a Reiki master, psychic, and breathwork facilitator.
Sure. Well, I had a super reluctant path to do what I do now for work. And if someone had told me 10 years ago, you'd be doing readings for people full time and doing retreats and all the beautiful woo-woo stuff that I do now, I probably would have laughed in their face and said, "Pff, that would never happen." And my previous path before taking the spiritual path is a clinical path, so very,
Mm.
very of mind. But how I came to do what I do is I was reflecting on this. I remember as a child walking to school because I actually grew up in New Zealand. And I'd walk to school and I would play with the energy around children. And I was probably only about 5 or 6, and I would watch their auras. And then I would watch like what I would see, like these light beings, which I know now are spirit guides, but I didn't know that at the time, walk with children as they went to school. And I would play with the energy around children. And I remember doing this for years, but never talking to anybody about it and feeling like as a child that it was like magic. I thought that I was magic, like a little Harry Potter. Not that Harry Potter was there in the 80s, but I remember doing that. But then from those early days experiences, I don't recall anything, really significant or fundamental, anything else other than being able to see energy, which is quite good, and guides and auras. It just became very normal. But when I became a teenager and stuff, that all faded. But where my journey actually begins is when I was 17 years old and I went to a party and I really wanted to have a sense of belonging with the cool kids. I mean, everybody kind of wants to be in with the cool kids.
Hmm.
The cool kids were at this party and the cool kids were all sitting around and they decided we are going to use a Ouija board, which I would just say up front is never a recommendation of mine. It's like, no, 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 please, nobody, please touch a Ouija board. Um, but I'm sitting at this party, never not done a Ouija board before, thought, let's do it. Let's just see what happens. And of course, when we all sat at this table with this Ouija board, it moved and it shifted and it literally blew everyone's mind, what was coming through. But from that experience, I must have opened a really lower vibrational door, like got into a frequency which, isn't high. And what I did is I had invited in lower vibrational energies around my field. So for about 2 years after that experience, I started to see more again. And I was able to see again beauty and light and angels and so much gorgeousness, but I was also able to see darkness. And so I was hearing things and I was being shown images and I would see people walk through darkness and be terrified for them. So, but at this time, I honestly thought that I was going crazy because so many of the women from my mother's side of the family have been institutionalized for mental health. And
Mm.
it's been things like psychosis and schizophrenia. And I remember when I was about 9, my uncle sitting down with me having a serious chat. And he made me promise to him that I would not go crazy,
Wow.
like all the other women in my family. So I had this deep-seated fear. So I'm going through about 2 years of just thinking, this is me. I'm just following the women in my family. Like I've lost the plot. I didn't say anything to anybody. But my mum must have, well, she did realize something was going on for me. I think she probably thought that I was using drugs because I was really disassociated, really down, you know, not normal within myself. And it was an odd occurrence because my mother is Catholic. And she decided out of the blue that she would take me to see a Catholic psychic, which is a contradiction in itself because Catholics aren't
Yeah.
usually psychics, or choose that path. And I was like, okay, sure, really not that engaged because I'm quite numb and anesthetized within myself because of everything that's going on. And we went to this lady's house, and she was this beautiful, elderly Irish lady, and she must have been between 80 and 90 years old. And she had the thickest Irish accent, and she was so warm and welcoming. And she asked my mum to wait in the lounge room, and then she took me into her reading room. And every single inch of wall in the room that she did her psychic work was covered in crucifixes. So
Mm.
crucifixes everywhere. So God, Jesus, everywhere. And the only thing that I told her was my name. And she sat with me and she tuned in. And I remember she immediately said to me, "You can see, you can hear, you're super open." And and even now, like I feel deeply emotional about this because I feel like part of me owes this lady my life. Because I feel like if I hadn't met her, I probably would have been institutionalized. And she just sat with me and she's like, "This is happening for you, and this is happening for you, and this is happening for you." And I just burst out crying because you know what it's like when you feel seen. And I just
Mhm.
felt so seen, but so fragile and so vulnerable. And this lady just understood straight away. So she called my mum into the room. She sat my mum down and she said to my mum, Your daughter's going through a huge psychic attack. And this is what's going on for her. And we need to organize for her to get a full clearing. So what actually ended up happening is they organized for a Catholic priest to come round to our house. And at that time, the bedroom of our family home, my bedroom, it was a really, really dark place for me. It was where a lot of spiritual stuff was coming out, even though could come out at the shops, it could come out anywhere. But in my bedroom seemed to be a place where I was getting a lot of stuff happen. And before the priest came to our house, I remember and it was honestly like scenes from the movie of The Exorcist, like it all terrified me.
Mm.
And I remember my brother trying to come into my bedroom and there was no lock on the door or anything. And I started screaming and he couldn't get into my room. So they had to break the door off because something had just like yeah, put an obstacle to the door. So I'm in my bedroom and I got that terrified that there was no sound. I just went into a freeze response.
Mhm.
So the priest ended up doing what is traditionally done in an exorcism. And immediately it was done. It was
Mm.
it was clear. I was clear. I was completely clear again. That everything went away. I wasn't seeing gnarliness. I felt free. I felt a massive sense of relief from that experience. And I remember I only met that beautiful Irish lady once. And I remember she said to me, "You can turn off if you want to. Like, you do not have to see. You do not have to be open." She said, "After you go through the clearing, we can switch you off." And I was like, "Please, please, 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 please. Like, I cannot live my life this way." And so once I had the clearing with the priest, I was completely switched off. And
Mhm.
then I wanted to contact the lady and say, "Oh my gosh, like, thank you so much." Like, because she meant so much to me. Like even now, I feel like when I pass and go to the heavens, I just want to thank her. Like I want to go, "Thank you
Aw.
so much for being." But the strange thing is that after that one experience we had with her, we could never find her again. Her number didn't exist. We couldn't, even though we had driven to her house, we lost her address, everything. And to this day, I still smile and feel and think that she was probably an angel in disguise. God works through people because from that experience she's just disappeared and vanished. So anyway, I like to think that she was an angel and it kind of makes sense that she was like a gift from God to help me on my path. And then what happened is for about 20 years I was completely switched off, so I wasn't seeing, I wasn't feeling, I wasn't intuitive, and I loved it, right? And if someone spoke to me about spirituality, I was so anti-spiritual, which is why I went to everything that you could quantify by science. Everything that was rational, I would anchor into. But if it was anything spiritual, energetic, woo-woo, I was like, no, 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 no. And I was really judgmental on it, you know. And of course, my judgment and insecurities all came from fear, you know. And there's no way that I wanted to reopen again. However, there's always, another path. And for me, that was we're living in Australia. It's me and my husband with our beautiful children and dogs. And my husband's best friend passed away. And my husband is English, and his best friend passed away in the UK. And I was sitting in the lounge room with my husband, and he was trying to, he was going through grief, and he was trying to work out if he was going to go to the funeral or not. And I'm holding him, and he's sobbing. And I feel like it's because I love my husband so much. But what happened is my heart opened, and his friend who had just passed a few days earlier just walked into the room. Yeah, just yeah,
I want to hear the rest of this, but I have to mention this right now because it only happens when there's someone from the other side, specifically a male coming through. I'm getting that feedback. It always happens in that moment. It just
yeah.
started as soon as you started talking, and now it stopped.
Bless.
So, anyway.
Yeah, bless. Yeah. Um, Thank you for that, my love. So, yeah, my husband's friend walked into the room, and I didn't, when spirit comes in, your heart smiles, like it's so beautiful. But it was a new experience for me because I hadn't had it since, being 17, 18. And his friend walked in and sat on one of the sofas in the room. And I didn't know whether I should say to my husband, "Oh, Pete's just walked into the room," right? Because he doesn't know about what I've been through and things. And he didn't at that point. But Pete started telling me stuff about Paul and their experiences together. And he was like, "Ask Paul about the Glastonbury Music Festival. Let's talk about this music. Let's talk about the girls we met." And I was like, I don't want to talk to my husband about the girls he hooked up with at the music festival. But he was like, no, because if you do, it will provide meaning for him that I'm actually here. And so I started to like open up to my husband. I was like, hey, do you remember when you went to the music festival with Pete? And I came through with all these details. And my husband's like, what is going on? Like, how do you know what's happening? And I was like, well, Pete's here and he's got messages for you. And the main message was it was an apology because bless Pete, he had drowned. But the reason he had drowned is because he was drunk and he decided to jump into the River Thames and he didn't get across. But he was so apologetic because making those actions that he took his life. And then he had seen all these people who loved him and they were in so much pain and suffering. And he was just like, mate, I'm okay, but I'm really sorry for my actions. And it meant the world to my husband as well. And it was a really, really beautiful experience. From that, from that experience, my husband, who works corporate, so he wasn't spiritual at all, he said to me, Nat, what you just did for me was so healing. Maybe you could do it for other people. And I was like, no, no way, it's just a one-off. I'm not doing it. No, it's not happening. Again, the fear, the fear, the fear, the fear, the fear. And he was like, no, no, I really feel like you could help people. But what I was doing covertly from that is I started to like gently look into spirituality, but I'd be like two steps forward, one step back, two steps forward, because um yeah, again, so much fear. And then what kept coming up on Google was this advertisement for reiki. And I'm like, reiki, what is reiki? Reiki is reiki, but I'd never heard of reiki, and I was trying to pronounce it like I'm looking at it going, what is reiki? And I felt this massive draw to go do reiki, which I therefore learned was reiki. I'd never had reiki or anything like that. And I went to this like Reiki level 1 workshop. And I honestly, I must have just looked like thunder because I would have been so defensive. Like, I remember being there going, I don't know why I'm here. I don't really want to be here. But some part of my being obviously wanted to be there. So I learned how to do Reiki. Eventually, became a Reiki master. Um, I learned how to do Reiki, but I was still kind of like in the closet with everything. But what I would do is I would invite family and friends over, and my ego would try to hide it, but it'd be like, hey, do you want to come over? I learned this really weird thing. And I would like try to downplay it because I was
Yeah.
so uncomfortable with it. And so what happens is friends and family would come over and I'd do Reiki on them. But every single time I do Reiki on them, spirits just started teaching me. And again, I started to see. So I was seeing their fields of energy. I was seeing their childhood. I was seeing mum come through. I was seeing dad come through. I was seeing what life was like in the womb. I'm seeing all this stuff and spirits teaching me, teaching me, teaching me. So I was just doing it for friends and family. And then what happened is that friends and family would tell someone else, who told someone else, who told someone else. And all of a sudden, it's become this thing where I'm now doing readings for people, but really having no clue what I'm doing at all. And there was a point because my background is clinical nutrition and helping people with their relationship with food. And I was working clinically in that arena. And then I've got all these people knocking on the door going, please, like, can you do a reading? Can you do a healing? And by this time I'm like, oh my gosh, I can actually do this. And I was finding more safety with it. And so I went out of science and went to the spiritual. And what has transformed over probably the last 8, 9 years that I've been doing what I do now full time is spirit teaches me, and it's probably the same for you. It's probably the same for like so many people in our work. Like we get taught every day by spirit. Every time we do a reading, we learn stuff, we receive wisdom. Like it's a constant evolution. It's one of those things like the more you know, the less you know. And your truth is one thing, and then your truth bends because spirit will teach you something else. And you're like, oh my gosh, this is amazing. Like it's just, Alice going down the rabbit hole. So eventually moving from Reiki, I then got really deep into shamanic healing and clearings and really deep into the stories that the body holds and the chakras holds. I started to mentor people. I started to just get more and more experiences. And now I still do readings full time, healings, and I run retreats. And I still love that I'm being taught by spirit. I've never been taught by a human mentor. I would have loved to have been taught by a human mentor, but I just couldn't find anybody who could meet me where I wanted to be met. So that's in a very long, long, long way, my love, how I came to do what I do today.
That story was so powerful. Just like literally everything about it. I feel like you are just this amazing person, and to go through all of that and find your way back into spirituality, which is where you had that gift to begin with when you were a child, is just amazing. And I think you're right. I think spirit like guided you there. I think that woman was an angel. I agree with you
Mm.
100% about those Ouija boards because I had a story. I remember we were playing with this Ouija board downstairs because I was always into like everything spooky, and my birthday was around Halloween. So we always had these like spooky birthday parties. And didn't know it at the time, but I remember it was me and my two friends, and it was, moving. And we didn't believe, we thought the other person was doing it. We didn't really believe it was anything, or maybe we were too scared to believe that was anything real. But like years later, the strangest things kept happening in that house. Like literally, the phone downstairs would dial 911 all the time. There was no phone
Wow.
line. The cops would have to come and check everything out. And to this day, I always say I will never use any of those things again. I never recommend it. But
No,
yeah,
same.
but your entire story was just phenomenal. And it's amazing that you were able to tune back into your higher self and your calling, and that you're
Thank
helping all
you.
these people now.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. Like now I honestly feel now like it's such a privilege. Like I really honor anyone who opens up to me to be part of their journey because I really honestly love to help people and love to love people and bring in like the Holy Spirit and speak to, God, Spirit, Source,
Mm.
all people's path now. Like it's such a privilege. So I'm so glad that the path was taken, even though it was a really rocky, resistant path.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. So, what is the higher self, and how can we tap into that?
sure. Well, I'll be honest with you, like a few years ago, I started to mentor people, and I remember them talking to me about the higher self, and I was like, yeah, 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 like holding it. But I'm thinking in my head, I don't really know what they talk about when it comes to higher self because I hadn't been taught formally, I
Yeah.
didn't understand a lot of the language that was happening. Um, the so with the high now I understand it fully, and I understood it then. It was just different wording. So we all have a right to be connected to source energy, as you would know. When we're connected to the energy of source, of divinity, which is our divinity as well, it provides us with the opportunity to be connected to our higher self. And the higher self is that part of us, which, so when I see the higher self come through for people, and again, you might be the same, it's like I'll see the person sitting there, and then behind them, I'll see this magnificent being of light. And the being of light doesn't necessarily have any defined features, but I can tell immediately that that's the higher self coming through. And it's interesting because, regardless of the size of the room, the higher self seems to fit in the room, but at the same time does not fit in the room. So, to be connected to the higher self, we I feel that we need to be very grounded, and we can ask to be connected. We can go into relationship, into communion with the higher self, and to be in relationship with the higher self gives us a higher guiding light, like different perspectives in life. A really heart perspective as well. It helps us to anchor into our intuition. It provides insight for us, which means that we're not caught in the egoic mind
Yeah.
as well, and that we can be so much more, of hearts, high frequency for ourselves and for other people. Because when we're connected to higher self and when we're connected to source, it has a domino effect on other people's energy. So I'm not sure if that completely answers your question, my love, but that's my take now on the higher self.
Yeah, no, I love that perspective and I agree. I feel like it's like the way I think about it is yes, there's that source, and then there's that part of you that is also connected to that source. Like you are that source. And
Yeah,
then when you connect to that
totally.
higher part of yourself, just like you said, that is not based on ego, not based on fear, not based on like revenge or anger. When you think of
Yep.
yourself and like how you would react and how you would respond in a situation, if you weren't in human form with those typical low frequency emotions, like, yeah, you're
Yeah.
tapping into that higher self. So. That was a great
Abs
explanation.
Absolutely. And I feel like it's a lot simpler, but we tend to overcomplicate things as humans as well. But it's not difficult to be one with your higher self and to walk with your higher self, but we have to, have a prayer of invitation. We have to have well, actually, maybe we don't have to have a conscious choice, but some part of us has to have a choice to be connected to that higher light, for sure.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think that even though it's not a separate entity from you, I think you have to be
Yeah,
open enough to be able to accept it and receive it and like call that part of yourself back in. So, yeah, I
yeah,
agree.
me too. Me too. And if someone's field, like if their field of energy is really fractured and or cloggy or holding a lot, it's really hard for us to have that connection to the higher self. So we need a clear field as well for that energy to flow down, for it to flow through, for us also to have the connection. So it's really important to have a really clear field of energy as well.
Yeah, and when we're talking about, right, the auric field and the field of energy, I know for so many of us, emotions, the emotions that we deal with, the emotions that we're feeling from other people impact our energy in that way. And sometimes we take on those emotions of other people.
Yeah,
Sometimes our emotions either get stifled or they, extend to these frequencies that we would have never felt.
yeah.
How do we handle like feeling so much in those moments? Is there a way that you've gone about like handling that in terms of emotions, frequency, and your energy?
Do you mean feeling other people's other
Yeah, like
emotions, my love?
yeah, what feeling too
Yeah.
much? Like when there's just too much and you can't
Yeah.
feel anymore. How do you stop that?
I don't feel like there's one thing. It's almost like a toolbox. And I also feel like we have to find what resonates and what meets us where we're at. Like it's got to be a vibe for us as well. I feel like well, of course, people who are more sensitive to energy are going to pick up on that a lot more. And one of the things which I always try to encourage people to do is to Make sure that they put intention towards anchoring into compassion rather than empathy. Because really sensitive people are generally quite empathetic. But when we're empathetic, we're going into someone's energy. Whereas, if we stay in compassion, I still witness you, I see your pain, but I'm not taking it on. I get to stay. You know, as the compass, I get to stay in the light and the truth of who I am. Because if you're constantly walking around being empathetic to everybody, even strangers on the street, you're going to collect everyone's energy, and you're going to find it really hard to discern what's my energy and what's their energy. But if we can kind of pull back and get that grounding and go, I see you, I hear you, I love you, but I'm in compassion, it's massive. It's a massive game changer. We get to stay high in our energy rather than dropping down. I also feel like when it comes to um, keeping ourselves clean and clear. Again, connection to source. I feel also connecting to our own divinity. Like one thing that I've been taught by spirit over the years is that there is a chakra which is over the crown chakra. And as part of purpose for all of us, we are walking a path to light up the chakra above the crown chakra. And this chakra is lights up when we completely honor and embody our divinity, when we know the I am, when we know that we are the God within, when we know we are spirit and source. I find for people who have that relationship with self, that creates this energetic, like, barrier and boundary because it keeps them always connected to God, to spirit, to source. But it means that they don't take on as much as well because they're connected to like that life force energy because they know their truth, they know their spirit. And this doesn't mean that, like, even though when we know our divinity, it doesn't mean that on some days we're going to look in the mirror and go, oh, I don't feel that great today. There's a very human responses too. Or we might make mistakes, but after we've made mistakes, we go, do you know what? I'm human, but I'm still divine. I'm still holy, and if we can really own that, that's an incredible spiritual barrier for people. Of course, like calling in spirit teams, calling in angel teams, like they're always around, but that helps to keep our energy clear as well. And when we ask, it's like an invitation. It's like we're in the classroom of life and we hold our hand up and going, hey, 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 could you please give me some extra help over here? And spirit comes running. They're like, yep, sure, baby girl. What do you need? Like, I'm right here. It's so nice. So I I do feel too, and I'm kind of going all over the place, but like smudging is really important. Smudging with intention. For me, it's prayer, 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 and more prayer. I'm always in prayer. And when I say prayer, I mean I'm just talking to spirit through my heart all the time. I'm just having these little conversations. It might be, when I hang out my washing or do the dishes, I'm in connection with spirit all the time. And I feel like that helps to keep me clear as well. But I feel like for anyone listening who's really sensitive to energy, you have to be very discerning of where you put your energy, of who you go to. If you're going to spiritual teachers or psychics or mediums, you have to make sure that they can recognize high vibrational fields and that they're really impeccable at what they do. Um, and I also feel like when we're really fatigued, we take on way more energy as
Mhm.
well. So that whole self-care within the human is a massive part of keeping energetically clear and trying not to take on everybody's stuff. I feel it's impossible not to take on some stuff, to be honest. But we can definitely have tools and navigate a life where we're not as susceptible as we may have been if we don't bring in the tools.
I do like the tip that you mentioned about just calling in your guides. Like in those moments where maybe you're surrounded by like intense emotional energy or situations that are so difficult and you can't figure out what's what. I love that.
Mm.
Like just calling in that divine support and they know what to do. They'll take care of it. Like you can kind of step back and just allow things to flow and just know that what is yours will become yours and the rest will leave.
Absolutely. Like, and the only thing I'll add to that too
Yeah.
is we have to be grounded, we have to be grounded, we have to be grounded. If when we're more scattered, then we're way more likely to take on other people's energy. So the breath, maybe aromatherapy, if that's your vibe, like really coming into the body is also going to be amazing energetic protection from other people's stuff.
Amazing. Now, how can we become more spiritually and culturally appropriate in this field?
This is a really big question. And um, I don't. this is inspired by a lady called Asha Frost. And I remember reading one of Asha Frost's books a few years ago and then listening to her on podcasts. And she's a very inspirational woman and she talks about cultural appropriation within spirituality. And I feel it's something that a lot of us really should have reverence for. So, what this means is, for instance, I love crystals. I love crystals. I think they're amazing. But being spiritually appropriate and also culturally appropriate is where are your crystals from? Is it ethical the way that they're sourced? If you're using sage, if you're using herbs and aromatics, is it ethical? Is it sustainable? If you're taking a tool from a different culture, like the drum or something that's not from your primary culture, which is so fine, everything's to be shared, but also have reverence for that culture. Like, don't just take the good stuff and then not stick up for race relations, not stick up for the human of things. Buying a Santo where you don't, where that Santo might not be coming from a source which is sustainable for the planet. Like, we have to be very, very aware of the tools that we pick up. Are we actually helping the earth at the same time that we're helping people? Just be really mindful, like, if we're picking up people's different faiths, then make sure that you know enough about that faith to be spiritually and culturally sensitive to that faith as well. I feel like it's something that's not spoken about, but and because it can be uncomfortable for people, but it's something that's important that we do speak about because we're all in the same canoe, but we have to give the right respect and honor and reverence for like indigenous traditions and cultures by really knowing not just about their spiritual tools, but where they come from, how we can help, how we can stand up for, how we can have a voice for as well. So it's not just I'm taking this and using it in my spiritual practice. It's like I'm using this with love and kindness, and thank you so much. And what's the background of this? And how can I help? How can I give back? It's that real reciprocity that needs to come through. That isn't, I feel, always honored in lots of different contexts, but definitely within the spiritual industry and within spiritual contexts for not all people, but some people.
Mhm.
Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
it makes a lot of sense. And thank you so much for sharing that.
I'm glad it makes sense.
And now we're going to dive into the spirit segment. So, are you ready for about 4 questions that I ask everyone
Da-da,
who comes
da-da,
on?
da-da, da-da. Yeah.
Some of them you might
I
have
didn't see
answered,
these
but
questions, so I'm like, oh, what are they?
you might have answered some of them, so you're gonna have to think on the spot. All
Okay,
right.
no
So,
worries.
one thing you always include in your daily routine that keeps you grounded and balanced that might help
Hmm.
others do the same.
Sure. Um, I have already said it, but it's such a good thing that I'll say it again. Prayer. Prayer. Honestly, prayer. Like, uh, as soon as I start to wake up in the morning when I'm in that period between, awake and asleep before my feet touch the floor, getting out of the bed, I pray. Like I speak to spirit. I ask them about the day. Because I do readings all the time. I'm like, please open me up to be there to support my beautiful clients who come to see me. So there's so much prayer in my life, and I also find that small rituals help me to come home to myself and help me open up as well. Like, and the small rituals aren't necessarily spiritual rituals, but I can make them sacred as well. Like, I'll make a cup of tea, but I'll put love into it. Like, I'll make the bed. The bed's a sacred place. How can we create something beautiful that is energetically supportive? So there's lots of little things that I do throughout the day that's almost culminating to
Mhm.
sacred energy.
That's awesome. And I know you shared the amazing story right in the beginning about Spirit and your husband's friend. But the second question is your favorite story regarding your connection to Spirit, unless that's it, unless that's the one.
Oh my gosh. I find this question so difficult because there's so
So
much
many,
like
right?
every
Yeah.
day. Yeah, I'm like, oh, 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 oh. Um, I'll tell you about something that makes me giggle that happened to me more recently. So about a month ago, I was having a tantrum, Steph. Like I was at full tantruming, right?
Mhm.
And I was tantruming because and this is my human. This is my human. I had had so many clients and friends, and they'd had these awe moments with spirit where they were like, "Oh my gosh, Nat, like this thing happened. It was amazing." And I was so happy for them. I was so happy. But then after it was like a Friday night, and I was sitting there, I'm like, geez, all these people are having these amazing experiences. And I was like, I haven't felt awe, like in like, whoa, awe and magnificence in a long time. And I was reflecting on it, which also in reflection, I know is not true because I do get to experience the world differently. So if someone lived a day in my shoes, they'd be in awe pretty much all
Yeah.
the time. But for me, it's so normal now that
Yeah.
it's not awe. So sitting there, and again, I was talking to God, and I'm like, why can't I experience awe? Like I was tantruming. I was tantruming. Like, I want to experience it. And I was kind of pissed off, like, because I was tired and stuff. And I remember challenging like God. And so I was like, okay, God, I want to experience it all. So I tell you what I want. Okay, I want one of three things this weekend. I mean, okay, just for a little while, can you show me what heaven's like? Because I don't know about you, honey, but like when I speak to someone who's passed over, I never ask about heaven. I'm like, so tell me what it's like, and I get inklings, but it's like I get anesthetized to us. So I said in my little challenge to God, I'm like, hey, can you just take me for a little while this weekend? I want to experience, or can you show me heaven? But I want to come back. And I said, or I want to meet a mermaid. That was my next, I know. Or I just want to sit down with Jesus Christ and I want to have a coffee. Again, I say this to you and I've got a little bit of shame around it because I'm not giving it the reverence that it needs. But I was in a bad mood. I was in a shitty, bad mood.
Yeah.
Anyway, I wake up on Saturday morning. Of course, my mood's changed and I'm feeling different and I'm feeling vibrant and I'm feeling buoyant. And I kind of forgot that I'd put that like challenge out to God. Anyway, I was lying down in my bedroom on the Sunday morning and just resting there as the weirdest thing happened. And it feels bizarre to talk about now because I'm like, oh my gosh, you talk about awe. I was transported to heaven.
No way.
Yeah, yeah, I know. But what I've realized is heaven is multi-realmed.
Yeah.
Like, and yeah, and so I was transported to one aspect of heaven's probably the easiest way to say it, right?
Hmm.
And you know how there's that song, or there's a few songs like "Heaven is a place on earth," blah
Yeah.
blah. It's so true because heaven just looks like earth. And but the how I knew that I was there is all of a sudden. And the other weird thing is that it felt like I was in my body, which
Mhm.
you don't go to your body in heaven. So there's a few weird things. But I'm in heaven, right? And I knew I was because I was on this incredible stretch of beach. It wasn't a perfect day. It was moody, it was windy, it was but everything was perfect. Everything. The waves were perfect. The wind was a perfect temperature. But what I noticed is that there was no fear in my body. No fear at all. But and I don't think I hold a lot of fear. I'm human, so there's some fear in my
Mhm.
nervous system. But the difference between being human with fear, being in heaven with like no fear was like polar opposites. So I'm walking and crying and praying. So there was no one there in this heaven, but it was just everything and nothing all at once, completely calm. And I was just like, oh my God, I'm so free. Like I'm so free in my body. And I'm not sure how long I was there for, but it felt like I was there for about 10, 15 minutes. And then I just, I just, all of a sudden, as quickly I was there, I was quickly back
Mm.
in my body, back on the bed. And I was like, and I knew, I was like, okay, God, very funny. Like I remember now, I put the challenge down and you're like, okay, you asked for it, here you go. And I just sat there going, oh my gosh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Like I understand now. So and I know I only like touch the surface of heaven, and it's such a privilege. I told one of my girlfriends who's an incredible tarot reader that I had this experience. She's like, you're very naughty. She's an older lady. She goes, you're very naughty, Natalie. You shouldn't go to heaven until you're asked to go to heaven. I'm like, well, I was just there. Like it was just literally a gift from God. So that's my that's the experience that comes to mind when you ask me that. But I could probably talk for like 2 years
You know what I
about
love?
different amazing things.
You know what I love about that story? It's so relatable. I feel like so
Oh,
many
good.
people are like that because, like, specifically, like, dealing with the emotions where, like, you feel like nothing's happening for you or you're seeing other people,
Yeah.
get these amazing experiences and you get in those like moods where you're like feeling like nothing is happening. You get angry and frustrated and like down. And I love how like, yeah, God gave you your gift, but the next day when you were back, like out of
Yeah.
that, out of that frequency, when you were able to like actually take it in from like a place of like peace and, you know, so
Yeah. Uh,
I loved that. I thought that was fine. Funny because I feel like that's how it works. Like it's never in the moments when you're coming at it
yeah.
with like that anger and that
100%.
frustration. It's always like
Yeah.
after that when you forget what you even asked. And you're like, oh yeah, I
Totally.
did
Because,
ask that.
yeah, I completely forgot because I was
Yeah.
like, just chilled in my normal self. And I was like, oh my gosh, because I feel like God Spirit Source is like, they're like my besties. Like, they're so funny. I think it was like God, like being like a practical joker, going, hey, girl, you asked, there you go. Ha ha ha. Like, and kind of smacks me over the face in the most beautiful way. But yeah, it was it was such an amazing thing to experience.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's really, really fun. Now, what is one final piece of advice you have for listeners trying to improve their spiritual well-being?
Ooh. Well, to go backwards, to go forwards, I
Hmm.
feel like sometimes the most spiritual people are the least spiritual people. What I mean by that is, those people who lead from the heart, who don't necessarily do spiritual practice, but they're just kind, compassionate human beings. I feel like when people talk about awakening, it's awakening of the heart. So for people on the path of wanting to open up spiritually, it's about helping themselves to heal so that their ego doesn't get entangled in judgment and projections, so that we can have that awakening from the heart and lead from there. Of course, I will also say spiritual hygiene, as we said, like your
Hmm.
experience, like my experience. Please, please, please be so safe with what you do. Do not pick up lower vibrational tools like a Ouija board. It's never going to be a good thing. People don't know what they're opening up to. So I would say, like, pick tools and ways of being when you're grounded, which are going to open you up to light,
Yeah.
to the Holy Spirit. Don't be very wary of like dark energy, dark magic, even if it's boxed in the most beautiful way and looks oh so glamorous. Like, be very discerning with what you do with spirituality, but always come from the heart. Like, even I mentor a lot of healers and channelers, and I've mentored people with so many different certificates. But if they can't love people, and if they can't be kind, and if they can't see the person through the heart, regardless of their human actions, of you can't bring as much energy in for
Yeah.
people. So if on the spiritual path, be in your heart with people, choose to love them, even if they're just a stranger, just to love them, because that's how God will work through all of us. So yeah, come from the heart, come from the heart, come from the heart. That
Amazing.
would be my advice.
I love it. And where can our listeners go to learn more about you?
They can follow me on the gram, the good old gram, which is guided by Natalie. They can hit me up at my website, which is natalieseigne.com. And they can book in to come on retreat with me. I love retreats with my beautiful people, or come in for a soul session, or whatever it is that they need. Whatever people come for, Spirit will guide, as they will do with you. They will guide everything and bring in what's necessary. So,
Yeah.
yeah, there's a few different ways to connect, my love.
Awesome. Now, before we go, I pulled a card for you. So it's
Hey,
representing
amazing.
you, and then I'll share the message for everyone else at the end. But you know what's so funny? So I always have like this intuitive thing right when I pick it up. So I'll share that. But then as we talk, there's always like some things that pop up that I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. So here we go. So you got the Son of Pentacles, which is all
Ooh,
about being this like what stood out to me first was like how grounded you are in the earth and how like dedicated you are to this healing work that you're doing with yourself and other people. And the thing that made me kind of chuckle, I was like, I have to remember to bring this up, was when you were talking about your story about like wanting the awe. and not getting it and getting
Yeah.
frustrated because sometimes this card can represent those teenage emotions, like the
Yes.
love to the frustration and like you could see he's like staring down instead of like looking up.
Hmm.
So it's almost as if like in that moment it was like, like okay, look up, notice the awe that's all around you, but then
Yes,
like
a
God came in and
hundred
was like, okay,
percent.
now I'm really gonna have to like shove it in her face.
Yeah, yeah.
But just
So
about this
true.
like beautiful, grounding, trustworthy person that you are. So
Thank you
I
so
liked
much.
that. Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And the message for everyone else is if there is something you want to accomplish, if there are tasks in your mind, whether it's big or small, what you want to do is instead of focusing on all of them right now, pick one that your heart is guided to, and focus on that. Put your effort in that and then watch what happens, watch what grows after that. So, Natalie, thank you
Such
so
beautiful
much.
advice.
Aw,
Oh, no.
thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you
Yeah.
for coming on. It was so lovely to talk about everything that we talked about. It was so fun.
Well, you're very easy to chat to, and
Aw, so
my
are you.
nerves and my anxieties went away, my love. So thank
Yay.
you for being you.
Aw, and thank you for
Yeah.
being you.